evening, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam with a 3D-induced headache. My favorite thing on the planet after seeing a 3D movie is this fucking headache for the next day and a half. So, lucky me with 3 hours and 6 minutes of sitting and watching James fucking Cameron do his thing on the screen. So, we are here to talk about Avatar, The Way of Water, Avatar 2, and I guess The Way of Water also includes the fucking weather, because here I am in the rain. And here's the thing. I'm conflicted about this movie. And if you listen back to the episode I did recently about the first Avatar, about how I think it's aged better than we give it credit for, because it is kind of, what's wrong with here? It's kind of, looking back, we were able to say, oh, it's a work of fantasy, because at the end of the day, we don't, like, if this happened now, we wouldn't do this. We wouldn't be these people anymore. We wouldn't go in and, do this to the natives. That's not what we are anymore. We know better now. And it's like, well, with 100% certainty, I could say we would 100% do what we did in Avatar if we found an alien planet. And I think that the issue is, this new one doesn't really do anything too new. There's nothing about this movie that is, the effects are great, and that's the thing. If you're going to go to this movie, you're going to go and see this movie. I can guarantee you're going to see this fucking movie. When you see this movie, you're going to question, what's the story they're trying to tell here? And the thing is, it's like, picking up sometime after the last Avatar, I think it's real time, but I'm not 100% on that, and I don't want to say. But, like, sometime later, I think it was 5 years to get to and from Pandora, so it would be about same time. So, the humans have come back to Pandora, and they're here to kill Jake, because he embarrassed them last time. So they're here, they want to get their pound of flesh, they've come back, and I'm going to play the spoiler warning, because I'm going to spoil the fuck out of this movie. So that's their whole thing, is that the humans have come back and they want to do that. They've started building a city, and the new plan is not to just mine unobtainium and all of that. The situation on Earth has gotten dire, so what they're going to do instead is they're going to turn Pandora into the new Earth. So what they're going to do is they're going to start building a city and relocating humans to Earth, so that way they can start colonizing, and that's going to be the new home of humanity. All right, we're all caught up. We're all good on that. And I think the interesting thing that they do is, here's the thing. On the one hand, I like the idea of using a recurring bad guy for this. I like the idea of the personal vendetta between Miles Quaritch and Jake Sully. I think that really serves the plot really, really well. Because I think that it gives Jake a personal edge to this conflict, and it gives the antagonistic force a personal edge to it. That's not just, we're here to, do what we're here to do. We're like, we're here for our reason, you're entrenched in yours. It becomes a more personal fight, and I really like that. On the other hand, and I do really like the way they resurrect him, using a cloning program that makes Na'vi bodies based on people like avatars. I really like that idea too. I don't know if it would have been better to have a different villain. No, I think you really only could do this movie with the same villain. So I think that, like, if you start branching out, it becomes an entirely different thing. So, they're living in the mountains, and they're chilling up there. That's where they relocated to after after Home Tree got blown up by Miles in the last movie. They relocated to the mountains, and the humans who are still who have come back can't get into the planet. Can't get into the thing because the mountains fuck with their fuck with the instruments, and they can't get in. All right, all this is really cool. So what they do is, and there are a few leaps of logic here, like, because they're Na'vi, and, like, the planet's automatic, like, defenses in the form of nature won't attack them. It's like, that seems a little weird, especially considering how many biological tells there are physically that I didn't notice when I was watching Avatar the first time. Like, I didn't notice until watching it now that the Na'vi only have 4 fingers. They have 3 fingers and a thumb, and that's it. I never noticed that because it wasn't a major point. And the same goes for, what's it called? And it's like, you mean to tell me that people can look at you and be like, oh, you have 1 too many fingers? You're one of the demons from the sky people? Like, come on. But the animals can't differentiate that. Like, it's a little bit of a weird thing. It's like, just because they're blue, it means they can get around the security system. It's a little weird that they're okay with that, and that got through. I feel like there's definitely a, so what happens is, Miles and his team of other crazy people who are never really fleshed out, let's call them the Knights of Ren, for no reason. They all go, and they go to hang out in the, they go to check out the spot where Miles died. They find it, and then that's when the first real fight happens, and the kids get captured because they were out there too, so then Jake needs to come rescue them. But apparently at some point Miles had a kid before he left. That's important too, and this kid is, was left behind on Pandora because the kid was too young to go into cryo sleep. So he just kind of was chilling on the planet, and it's like, alright, that's a little strange, I guess, whatever. And the kid has been raised as a Na'vi, basically. It's an interesting thing. And I think that, like, when we get into the plot, it's more about, like, the movie's more about being a vehicle to show the visuals, and then to kind of reintroduce you to the world of Pandora, because in this new format, we're getting an Avatar movie every few years now. So I think the sequel to this one's coming out in 2024, so strap in for that. For the rest of our lives, we'll be seeing, the fucking world of Pandora. So they go, and, after this attack happens, Jake has a realization they are not safe there. And as long as they're there, Jake and Neytiri and his family, including... And here's something that I think is interesting that they don't really play with as much, and we'll call this character Finn. Because, or let's say Anakin, because this character, it is 100% obvious what's going on with this character, but no one in the movie has figured it out yet. But you can figure it out while watching the movie, which I can't fucking stand when that happens. Like, so apparently, in the first one, Grace, who's the doctor played by Sigourney Weaver, she dies. But before she dies, as she's dying from the gunshot wound from Miles, they try to transfer her consciousness into her avatar permanently, which is what they end up doing at the end of the movie to Jake, through the power of the god or the central consciousness of the planet of Pandora. It fails though, but somehow the avatar got pregnant from this, and then the avatar gave birth to this baby they call Kitty, who's hanging around with them the entire time, and that child can feel the heartbeat of the planet and do all that, and the movie hand waves it away like, oh, she's got a form of epilepsy, she can see delusions of seeing God, stuff like that, and I'm like, motherfucker, like, what the fuck? Like, it's so dumb that it's like they treat you like such an asshole with this plot point. That I'm like, I know what this is. It's the planet impregnated her, and when now Avatar is going to come to mean she's the avatar for the planet. Like, what the fuck? It's so easy to figure out. I was watching this, and I'm like, can we just fast forward through all this bullshit? Because I know where this is going to end up. And then it never actually ends up there. And it's like, oh, so are we going to believe going into the next movie that that's the case? No. Fuck no. She's going to be, jacked into the planet's hive mind and on a more intimate level. That's the entire thing. That's what they're building to. And it's so dumb that they're stretching it out in this way. And you already have a 3-hour movie here, and the next one's going to be another 3-hour fucking movie. And whatever, fuck it. But, so they all go, and they decide to go to the water tribes of the north, or the south. The north, because when you head north to find them, the humans find the southernmost tribes first. So they head north, and they decide to go to hang out with this tribe and learn their ways. And it's like, all right, cool. So they learn the ways of this tribe, learn how to swim underwater. And I think one of the really interesting things about this, again, visual thing, not very deep, it's, you know, the Na'vi who make up this northern tribe have very different markings and very different skin tone and even like muscle layout and tail design and all of that, because evolutionarily they are their own thing. They are in the middle of, like, they're an aquatic tribe, so they have different, you know, like, divergent evolution. It's an interesting thing, and it looks really cool, but, you know, notwithstanding, so, you know, they get mocked, ostracized, they learn how to bond with the new Banshee thing. That's not called a Banshee, but I don't remember what it was called, but it's like a Banshee that can swim really deep and also fly pretty low to the water. Cool. All cool designs. And then they go to, what was the other one? And the thing is, too, with the blue thing not, you know, like, oh, well, we're blue, so they won't see us coming. The planet's defenses will just look us right by. It's like, fuck you, because the entirety of the first movie happens, because that's not the case. Whatever. So, they go to this tribe, they learn their ways. The youngest son goes out and makes friends with this whale thing that I don't remember the name of, but they say the name like 700 times, so it's important, which is on its own, and it's on its own because it is a killer, and it's been ostracized from the rest of the group because these whales have giant, you know, they're hyper intelligent, and they do all these cool things, and all that stuff happens. And then they go to, and multiple times they have this issue where it's like, okay, we're going to learn this, and now we're going to do this, and now. Meanwhile, you know, Miles is coming back with an army, and it turns out that these whales are hunted because they have something in there, like their alien whale amygdala, that when humans either consume or bathe in it, they're not very clear on that, it grants them immortality, or it takes away aging. So that's even more valuable than unobtainium. And then, you know, so they're going out and they're hunting, and they're going up there to hunt those and also find Jake. And that's when they find Jake, and the third act war ensues. Now, it's a cool fight. Few notes. Number one, I feel like this is less cool than the fight in the first one. Because the fight in the first one, at least, has some unique... Like, I think that the aerial fights inherently are cooler than naval battles. That's just me, though. And I think that that's definitely part of the problem. Is that it's like this fight is built on, you know, it's all close to the ground, close to the water. And I'm like, all right, can we just, you know, get through this part? That was problem number one. Problem number two is the continued and repeated hostages being switched and all of that. And I'm like, fuck this. We just move this along. And then there is the third issue, which is once you get to a certain point, it literally just becomes Titanic. And that's not a joke. That's not me making a joke that they were unaware of. That is, when you watch this movie, they literally make Titanic references multiple times. And I'm just like, do we need to do this? Was this all just fucking James Cameron trying to get us to watch Titanic again? And then I had a feeling that was the case when you're sitting there watching, and they're on this fucking sinking ship, and two of them are up on top of it, and one of them turns to the other and goes, stick with me, as it's going under. I'm like, fuck you. That's the exact line that DiCaprio has when they're on top of the Titanic as it's sinking. And I was just like, fuck you. I know what this is. I understand what you're doing here. You think you're clever. You're not. Like, it definitely... It annoyed me. I don't know if you can tell. So... And then we get to the big climactic fight, because you have this big war, and then obviously the big war has to come down to a fight between two people. Otherwise, is it really a war? Just like I remember how the war in Afghanistan ended when... that's a bad joke. Let me cut that before I even say it. But like, how about that? We'll use World War II. I know World War II ended because Franklin Roosevelt had to get into a fist fight with Hitler to end that conflict. But anyway, it comes down to this fight between Miles and Jake. The problem is, I don't think that... Okay, I have to give this movie shit for the same reason I gave Venom shit. Here's the problem. In Venom, at the end of the movie, it comes down to this fight between a purple guy, a vaguely like light blue, like a bluish symbiote, and Venom, who's a black symbiote. That's the final fight is between these two characters, and that's how the movie ends. This one comes down to a fight between Jake and Miles, who are both dressed similarly, and are both CGI Na'vi. So when the fight comes down to these two characters, you can't tell what the fuck's going on, because the difference is their haircut and their face. And because it's a fight and it's moving kinetically, you can't see what the fuck's going on. So you don't know who's winning, who to root for, or whether something that's happening is good or not. At one point, someone gets thrown through something, I'm like, oh, good, Jake got him. And then you go over and no, that's Jake who's laying there, like, oh, fuck, Sully got him. And it's like, that's not good. So, I digress on that, and I think that, like, this movie does have I didn't spoil everything. I went out of my way to not spoil certain plot points. I just give a brief rundown of things that, stood out to me. I think that there's definitely, from a narrative standpoint, definitely room for improvement. There's definitely a lot that could have been done in this movie better than what was given, and there's definitely a lot that could have been done, and look, let's be honest with what Avatar is. Avatar is a vehicle to show cool visual effects and what things could look like in the future. Where could things go with future effects? What could movies look like in the future? And I'll say this: a lot of it looked really cool. Some of it didn't, but at the same time, that could have been my screen. I don't want to say it wasn't my screen because there were, audio-video issues plaguing the movie from almost the onset. And I think, and like to the point where they had to go and do it, and the movie started like 20 minutes late. I think that it's just there's just the everything looks cool, and then sometimes just in motion it didn't, but that could have, again, been my screen, not the movie as a whole. And if you see it on a premium screen, it may be better. I saw it in 3D on standard, but who knows. But, yeah, there's definitely stuff that could have been done better in this movie. Definitely, all along the way, stuff could have been done better. But I just... It's beautiful where it is, and I think that part of it is too. I guess it's not as bad as I thought. I didn't think it was gonna be bad. I didn't think the effects were gonna not be as good as they were. But I don't know how to define how I feel about this movie. It's so weird. It's an interesting conundrum, and I think part of it comes with the fact that the first Avatar was so groundbreaking that, like, this one has a lot of really cool stuff, but unless it's stuff in the water, it's not really unique or anything. It's like, we've seen a lot of what they did in this movie has been done. And not just in the first Avatar, where we're doing kind of the same, same visuals of the forest, same visuals of, of General Pandora, what the humans look like in their areas. Like, that kind of thing all kind of looks great, and that's not a knock on this. That said, I feel like there was definitely a lot of, like, we've seen a lot of, CGI movies since Avatar. Like, when Avatar came out, we had, like, Davy Jones was the biggest CG, humanoid character that, we as an audience had been like, oh, that looks really cool. We don't have that same, like, now it's like, Thanos is still the gold standard. And, And I think that the Na'vi do definitely look better than Thanos, but arguably, Avatar looks better than Thanos, especially with the new 4K print they did for this movie when they released it back in September. Which just leaves me in this weird position where it's like, I don't think it does enough to really say it looks above and beyond anything else that I have seen. It's just the difference is the entire way through it has that. There is no, we're saving money in the budget by doing this scene on Earth, or doing this scene here, or doing this scene inside, which there was a lot of in the first one. There's none of that, which makes it a little more impressive and a little more visually interesting the entire way through, and makes it where a 3-hour movie does not feel 3 hours long. So I would recommend you go see Avatar: The Way of Water. It's in theaters now. Definitely worth seeing in theaters. I have a feeling this movie, much like the first Avatar, will not be as fun to watch at home. So you should definitely see it while it's in theaters. But on that note, we'll wrap up there for today. And our next episode will be next week. Or no, tomorrow. I'm going to do Willow in the morning and National Treasure in the evening. But until then, have a great rest of your week.